So this is who we are. Sarah, my daughter, and myself. I give a little introduction about herself, and then Adam Kubel is Sarah's husband, and he's our resident tech expert, plus other things with us on board. Sarah does. She's our marketing and background, and kind of uh, wields the big stick in our company, I should say, I guess. And so we'll go on to the next slide here. And just a quick overview, with virtual fencing, of course, we got to have water. I mean, we can't have livestock without watering. So our company is just a niche company. We do solar livestock watering. We make our own solar water buggy and a few other cool things we do. We have power ear taggers now we sell. Ranchers are using them. A gal just told me the other day, young lady, she said they like tag 200 calves. And she said, Leah, it's a game changer. Couldn't believe how easy it was to tag our calves now with our power tagger, which you can also do the RFID tags. And then I guess before we got into eShepherd, we were selling, and we still are selling, a livestock tracker ear tag for livestock. So works totally on satellite, and it's a way to manage and where your livestock are. And so in Canada right now, I think I'm just gonna. I did this little quick introduction. I'm gonna let Sarah take over from here and give an overview of what eShepherd is about, because this is what everybody signed on about tonight to look at. And so I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Okay, great. Today we're talking about the Gallagher eShepherd product, but I just wanted to also say that in Canada there is No Fence, another product that's available for virtual fencing. Is Halter and No Fence and Gallagher, but the only ones that are in Canada right now are Gallagher and No Fence. So if you're the kind of high level of what is the eShepherd system. It's a neckband that the cows wear around their neck. It weighs 7-8 pounds, and it is a GPS neckband that enables you to control where your cattle are using your laptop or your phone. And the cattle, when they approach the virtual fence, it gives them a warning sound. If they continue onwards, they get a pulse. And so they learn in about 5 to 7 days that anytime they hear the beep, that they need to stop, because if they continue on, they will get that pulse. And so they're very quickly trained to realize that the beep is the system that stops them. So the neck bands have a breakaway strap. So if they were in the bush and they were to get tangled up, they break away. And there's a number of safety features and animal welfare features on this as well. So there are two options for the Gallagher system. There's a cellular option and a base station option. So in this producer talk, both Dave, Casorso and Kimmy Sue and Dan have cellular neckbands, but there also is a base station option as well. So if you don't have sufficient cell service in your area, you can have a base station, which essentially amplifies the available cell service, so that way your neckbands can work with it. If you have really, really non-existent cellular coverage, you can also use Starlink, and that allows you to work with the base station. So having a base station means that you essentially can get connectivity anywhere, because the base station is what's giving the connectivity options. If you are going with base stations, how many you need depends on your topography and a number of factors like tree cover and stuff like that. The pricing on them depends on whether you're going with cellular or with LoRa. No matter what, there's a 20 minimum order. So they are $415 each, but if you order 60 or more, that price drops down to $350. If you're using cellular, you don't require a base station. If you're using LoRa, you do need a base station, and that's $6,000 for your first one and $5,000 for your second, third, or fourth sort of thing. And how many base stations you need depends on how you're moving your cattle, how many cattle you have, how large your area is, what type of tree cover, etc. And so when you are looking to figure out how many base stations you have, or if you have sufficient cell coverage, you can call us and we'll walk you through what the best system would be for your ranch and whether it's feasible or not to have cellular, or if you need to go with LoRa. And then there's a couple extra features like neckband chains and top straps um, that are additional. And then there's also a yearly subscription fee, or I should say monthly, because you only pay for the system when you're using it. So if you only have cattle on range, say for half the year, you only have to pay for your subscription half the year. The cost with LoRa, if you were to keep it running all year, is $540. For cellular, it's $600. And these are all Canadian prices I'm quoting here. But of course, if you're only running your neck bands half the year, then that cost would be cut in half. There are lots of government programs that are available that fund the virtual fencing. So these are a couple that are available in British Columbia, and there's lots of programs in the States if you're from there, or in Alberta, Saskatchewan, etc. But in Canada, kind of the big ones are the off-calf funding, it's called. And so that's delivered through both IAF and CFGA. And so they cover between 70 and 85% of the cost of the neck bands. And then for folks that have an environmental farm plan, you also could apply for beneficial management practices program through IAF, and they also cover the neck bands up to 60%. So there are a couple different options here, but the funding all goes really quickly. And so if you're looking to apply for one of these for next year, because the funding windows for these ones are I think they're all closed now. So you would need to be really organized ahead of time because they all require either like different sorts of paperwork done. So the BMP program requires an environmental farm plan, and the off-calf requires a grazing management plan, and those take a while to get going. So if you want to apply for next year, you would want to make sure that you are organized well in advance. And if you need help navigating these funding programs, you can also give us a call. We're quite familiar with them, so we can help you out with them. So that was a super quick and fast overview to kind of bring everybody up to a minimum before we get launching into our producer webinar. But let's turn it over to Kimmy, Sue, and Dan, and they can talk about their experiences with eShepherd.
Hi, I'm Dan, and this is my wife, Kimmy, and we have a ranch here in Fossil, Oregon. And so we've been using eShepherd for a couple years now. So we're running cows on about 8,000 acres. You can see the picture there. That's kind of the terrain that we have, you know, not real rugged mountains, but mountainous. We have a lot of elk and deer and stuff like that. And, you know, so our cross fencing and stuff just is always getting knocked down by a herd elk that comes through or whatnot. And so the collars were a real attractive option for us to be able to know where our cows are and control where we want to keep them. Let's see, go ahead and go to the next slide. This is kind of a little overview. It's changed quite a bit since then. All those blue points are our water sources. And so I can build a paddock around any one of those at any given time and move them around. So that's just kind of like an overview of, that's a pretty simple form of what we're doing right now. You can go to the next slide. This, like I said, this program is really easy to work. The iPhone app is getting better every day and stuff like that. So fitting the collars we found was pretty simple. It is a little time consuming, but once they're on, you do have to monitor them as the cows are growing or the, you know, calves are growing. We put them on our calves when they, if we're keeping heifers, we'll keep them on, we'll put them on when they're 400, 450 pounds or so. And it seems to work really well. They're not quite as smart as adult cows though. So it does take a little bit of time for the new heifers or something to really get compliant with them, I found. But training the cows, it's very simple. They say to do it for like a week or so, but our experience is, you know, as soon as I can see that they're all interacting with it, and you can see that on the app, or on the computer program, you can see that they've received the audio or the the shock or something, and then they turn back away from it. We've noticed that it, so it maybe 3-4 days, a lot of times we'll turn them out. It works really good on bulls. For some reason, the bulls are the biggest babies with it. Now we run Black Angus, so I don't know about other breeds of bulls or something, but I mean, to the point where we even had 2 different groups of cows in our hayfield, just separated with virtual fence, and the 2 bulls would come up to the edge of that fence and want to get at each other and scratch and paw and everything, and they never did violate the fence. It was pretty impressive. Gallagher's very helpful anytime you have any questions or something like that. I found that was very nice if you have a problem to work through or something. They've taken care of every issue I've had, even from collars that don't work or whatever. They send them right out, new collars, and we replace them and stuff like that. So you could go to the next slide. We did get ours with a grant, our first GRAP batch of them. The nice feature I can see is the fact that you can exclude areas within a pasture that you're running them on. Like I have in this picture, a hay barn. I don't have a fence around that, and I can keep the cows away from it, and so I can graze them right up to the edge of it, and they won't get in there and tear up my hay, which is nice. The other nice thing is I can build $200,000-$300,000 worth of fences in 5 minutes, and in 5 minutes take them right down if I have to. So that's been a really good thing. And I got this grant based on trying to improve the range grass by forcing them to eat down some areas that have some invasive grasses and stuff, and reintroduce some better grasses in those. And it is working. Otherwise they would just skip over that and just go to the good grass. And so I've been able to actually force them to, mob down an area or something like that. So that was good. You can go to the next slide. This is just a picture of a track of a cow that just sat there and tested that fence all the way along. She never got shocked, but she just and I watched the cows. They'll do that. They're not bothered by the audio signal at all. They'll test it and just keep going along. It's not that she's really trying to get out. She's just walking that fence line. And so I am amazed about that as well. And the other side, they don't seem to really care and remember that, hey, that area had a fence. As soon as I open it up and I do it, I'll look, and within 10 minutes, one will be through it, and then the rest will go through. So it doesn't seem to be like something that they learn, hey, I'll stay away from that area because I'll get shocked. That doesn't seem to be an issue at all. So you can go to the next slide. So we run like 60% registered Angus. And so the nice thing is I was able to watch them so that I can know when they're calving. So I can look with the computer and I can see that a cow goes off on her own and drive right to her. And sure enough, there's a calf laying. I mean, I'm probably 90%. I can look on the computer and say, this cow is out there calving right now. So, and then it has so many different features that I can control that I'll just change the group, the color of the cow as soon as she has calves. So now I know I don't have to watch those ones. For example, like right now, all my cows that didn't calve yet are purple. And as soon as they calve, I turn them to blue and I can manage them that way. Next slide. Oh, that. So, okay, you can go to you can see in that picture, that's what I was doing there. So, and you can see there, that behavior right there. I can look at their track and I could see what they're doing and if they're in distress or something like that. So that's been a nice feature. I found one time that it actually was in distress. I had a small bull put his back foot up through the collar, and so it is supposed to break, but it didn't break. So, but at least it let me know that animal was down. And so it turned out to be a non-issue. So that's good. A lot of the other times I'll get an alert that it's down and it's just that it fell off. And so a lot of times how they've fallen off is I either put them on too loose, or I think they they get to scratching and pull it off. I haven't found one collar broken yet. So you can go to the next slide. Breeding, this is something that we're still currently working with, trying to keep them close with the cows while I'm breeding them so that maybe I can get a smaller calving window. And it does seem to be working. But the other nice thing is I could keep this 25 cows with this bull and this 25 cows with another bull in the same pasture and know which bull is breeding which cow. So that is nice too. So you can go to the next one. When we do round up our cows, it is really nice because you know that you don't have to count. You can just look on your phone and you can see that you've got them all. Last year when we were gathering, we had them all down and we waited until all the collars update, and I look and I said, nope, I still got 8 of them up in this one spot, and we were able to go right to them and bring them down. So that is really nice. You know, one of the things I tell a lot of people that ask me about it, I said, you know, I make a lot of calls, but I don't receive a lot of calls. And what I mean by that is I make a lot of calls to other ranchers. Hey, you've got some cows in my group or something like that. But I don't get any calls from that. People don't call me and say my cows are out. And that's a really nice thing. I had a buddy said, hey, you know, I think you got some cows down on the highway. And I said, nope, I can see exactly where every one of my cows is right now. They're not mine. You know, so that's kind of a nice thing. And it's a huge time saver. A lot of the ranchers around me, you know, when they round up, they have to come back week after week and keep getting a couple more, and time is money, you know. So you can do the next slide. Some lessons that we learn, and we've learned even more since then. We like to turn them off when we are doing a roundup and bringing them back. It just avoids problems. We've had it to where you've got them in a big group pushing them down, and if one collar for some reason gets too close to the fence, it beeps, they all stop. We tried to build a corridor at one time, say, hey, let's just push them down this, and if they, you know, we got a couple that try to break out or something, it'll stop them. And for us, that just didn't work. So we decided we just turn them off when we're doing it. I already spoke to the training and the wean calves. The return to paddock feature, we don't really use much because we do still have some cross fencing. So anyway, I can speak to that when the question didn't answer, but it didn't really work for us too much because what it does is if they keep walking away from the paddock or the pasture, it'll give them a shock or an audio and tell them to turn around. Well, sometimes they actually have to go away from it to get back through the hole in the fence that they found. So we found that did work. So for us, so go ahead and go to the next one. But there was one more thing since then, like last year, we had a really bad problem with some pink eye about a month into when I got them out on the pasture, and they're plenty far away from getting them back into a corral or squeeze chutes and that kind of stuff. And the coolest thing that we were able to find is that I was able to go out and treat them out on the range, and then I was able to quarantine the ones that had pink eye away from the rest of the herd until they cleared up. And that to me was just, it was such a cool thing for that. So, and then we had a fire a couple years ago that was getting close to where my cows were, and we were like 5 miles away on a trip, and with my phone and my computer being 5 hours away, I was able to start moving them down the mountain before we even got back to the ranch to get them down away from the path of the fire heading that way. Over the course of about 12 hours, I was able to get them moved down, and by the time we got back, I had them all standing right at the gate and was able to just open it up and walk them right back across the street to my place. So that was really a cool thing. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you That was great. So we have a big question and answer period at the end, so we'll tackle your guys' questions at the end, unless is there any in chat? Nope, none that were left out. Okay, so we will go now to Dave Casorso from Casorso Ranch, and I will share my screen and let him. We were recorded. Yep, we are. Okay. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and then we'll go to Dave. Do we have Dave still around? Oh, Dave is there.
Here I am. I'm trying to.
Okay.
There I am. Okay.
Perfect. I'll start sharing my screen here then.
Yeah, if you want to go to the next slide there. Okay, so first of all, that was a great talk that Dan gave. I don't know if I can elaborate much more on that, but anyway, I'm similar with the cellular collars. This particular area you're looking at is our summer range. We've been here 49 years now, and it's can be a challenging range. It is the bounded by the Okanagan connector to the north, and headwaters above Peachland is where we've grazed there. And so this year was the first year we put cattle up there with collars on, and the it was an area where I can't make a phone call, and yet these cellular collars were tight. I was kind of happy that we didn't have to use the towers, as there's quite a few issues trying to move those around, and plus vandalism, even by wildlife, maybe not people. So so far the cell service has connected. We did have issues with the batteries in this area. We done pretty. We went up later in the summer, and they worked good on our home place till they got up there, and I think it was because of all the trees that were in there that it gave us issues as far as charging, and so we had to move the cadence from 10 minutes up to 15 minutes, and then we went to 30 minutes, and we still showed low battery, but they were able to work fairly well. I'll have to say we didn't we just more or less monitor them. They this is probably, I'm thinking, 10,000 acres that they're in, and we set up a boundary around that, and I think 6 of them escaped. Of course, we were able to monitor them. That was a good thing, and we got 5 of them back uh, into the area, and one of them happened to get out actually right beside the connector, and it stayed with the neighbors' cows until they came down in the fall. So, but like I say, we were able to monitor them, and it worked out pretty good. Lots of problems with Gallagher. They've been very, very good to me in helping me with these problems, replacing the whole lot of that I got of collars, and also the technology is fairly easy, but I'm I had my boys do who are in Alberta, but they're pretty techy, and they had their own cattle as well, so they help a lot with trying to set up these uh, not so much on the summer range, but on the when we were down in the lower elevation pastures, we had some fairly tight pastures that we're moving sometimes every 4 hours, and they figured out all the technical stuff, how often to move them, and they also did the training of the cattle, which worked out fairly good for us. Um, like I say, if there's lots of water in this range. I show maybe one watering point, but it's virtually everywhere that on this range within, I'm thinking, half a mile, there would be either a creek or some watering point. So we didn't have to worry about that in the summer. We collared our mature bulls, and that worked out very, very well. We had two that came off, and we refitted them. We had to put longer chains on, and I didn't realize that you should have put Loctite on the bolts. So one of the bolts came off on that one, and another one, it just we didn't have it tight enough, I guess, so it was able to slip off. But once we re put the collars back on those bulls, they were on for the rest of they're still on now, so we we had one bull that probably kept them too long. He got ornery on me and charged me a few times, and when I was trying to get him kind of coming home, and so I just left them for about a week, and was able to monitor him, and I got him. He got down to an area within 3 or 4 kilometers of the corral, and we were able to set up a corridor, which worked really well in this particular case, where he was going down the road and he'd veer off to one way or the other, and he'd get beat. And once I think he got the shock, and right back onto the road and kept going down. We had a huge issue when he got to the corral because the corral was burnt. So we had some panels set up, and he kind of trashed them, and so we eventually got him. And I don't think we would have been able to get him without Gallagher and the eShepherd. So that worked out really well. Uh, and on our range, like I said, the cellular coverage isn't very good. So whenever I had to, especially monitoring these animals when I was up there, like our range is 50 or 60 miles away from our house, our home base. So and then quite a distance from one end to the other. So we got a Starlink Mini to hook up to our computer, and we were able to either with the cell phone or the laptop adjust the boundaries. Like I said, make that corridor for that bull, and then make or at least I could do it on either the cell phone or the computer, and to monitor where they were. And so probably move on to the next slide. So, oh, okay, this is the spring this is our calving area and our spring pasture. So we were monitoring these cattle. Actually, the slides are a little bit out, but anyway, that's all right. We did some bale grazing, and so we put out bales, enough hay to feed them for 5 days, and then set up the virtual pasture. They're not actually indicated on here, but we set it up so they automatically opened up each day, and also had to make sure we had the watering points, and that worked really well. I could be anywhere on the planet probably, and the cattle are looked after. I wasn't, but it it can really save a lot of time. And right now, where these cattle are, they're low elevation. They're probably we're just above Vaso Lake, and it's probably just over 1,000 feet of elevation. And we're grazing some of this bunchgrass range, but we do have a number of weeds in there that we're trying to reduce, and by using the cattle, and one of them is to trying to lower or at least lower the seed um, bank on the cheatgrass, and we're also able to graze these public roads and keep the weeds down. We can set up a virtual paddock boundary on the road, and they stop right there, so that we're able to kind of concentrate them higher densities, and reduce not only the grass, or at least graze the grass, but reduce the weeds. We've got mustard and some of the sweet clover, um, and knapweed, I guess, a bit. And they seem to, if you can graze that in the spring, and we've used electric fence in the past to do it, but this virtual fencing works a way better. Um, and the challenges, I guess, for us, uh, we're trying to, in some areas, not particularly in the summer range, but in these areas you're looking at now, is to provide water for them. Fences, we've got existing fences that probably don't fit with the way we wanted to graze it. So you got to make sure that they don't get hung up against those fences. Trees are a real issue on our place, trying to manage them around the cattle, and trying to fit these paddocks with the topography that we've got to, is can be challenging. And if you don't understand how cattle kind of work naturally, it can be a problem too. So move on to the next slide. So this is we started grazing this particular area the beginning of January this year, and we started out by where that pond is there, use that for a watering point, and then move them down to the south, uh, to each one of those dotted lines there that you see, and then down into the hayfield. Those are some fields that are irrigated with pivots. And then we had them set up and move through there Some were probably 6 hours grazing, and some were a little bit longer. And we were able to graze this area. We had 40, 45 head, I believe, um, till the middle of February. So we did save winter feed by being able to graze those areas. And we had one collar fell off. It was one that for some reason didn't have a clip on it, I guess, and that collar came apart, and uh, that cow, I think, was probably halfway through that grazing season. She just stayed with the cows. I mean, she might have wandered out of the virtual fence pasture the odd time, but pretty much stayed right with those cows through that. So, oh, and the cadence we had to change. That's the kind of the check-in time, from 10 minutes to 60 minutes, because of our lack of sunshine. So that helped to make sure those collars work, because the winter before we tried these same fields with the collars, but they all failed. They quit working, so we had to use electric fence, which, wow, that's a pile of work, especially when you got frozen ground to deal with. And so last year we went till the 1st of February without feeding. And I guess you could say this year and last year were pretty snow free, but it's still, we got a little bit of snow, but they just grazed right through it, and we were pretty happy. The other thing that we had to deal with was over 100 head of elk that were on there daily that were taking some of the feed too, but we still managed to to get enough to feed these cows through that period. So Gallagher and the eShepherd to me has just been a godsend, and it's been a lot of fun on our ranch. I'm kind of getting a little bit older. Like I said, we've been there 50 years on that range, and it just uh, it just really made it fun to be out there with these collars. And we're even using I got a little mini drone, and it doesn't always work in the weather, depending on the weather and stuff. But that's been a super way to manage these cattle when you have to move them from one place to the other. My dog's wearing out too, so that was another reason to use the drone. Like I say, you got to be careful how you use it, but it sure works to manage these cattle. So I think that's probably all I got there.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. So we have a couple questions that people have already asked in the sign up here. So I'm going to go through those ones first, and then just open up the floor for people to ask their questions generally. So is Adam on the call right now? Because the first question here was how to set up a tower. Adam, are you around to?
Yep, you bet. Hey, folks. Yeah, so my name is Adam Kubel. I'm the tech fellow or solution architect with Okanagan Ranch and Fence. So setting up a base station is pretty straightforward. There is a really good step-by-step guide that you get access to that basically walks you through. I'll be able to actually show you, I believe. Hold on a sec. Just share my screen. Oh. That will show you. Can you all see my screen or no? Not so much?
No.
Nope.
Okay. That's okay. So there's a step-by-step guide that allows you to see exactly
Now we can
what.
see.
Oh,
We can
perfect.
see now.
Yeah, so sorry, it's a bit zoomed in for you, but basically it walks you through all the parts. It's all well laid out. I'm not going to simplify it to the point of it's IKEA furniture, but it's pretty close. You basically just need a couple of tools that are relatively common on site, and it goes through step by step with pictures, how things to connect, and the pieces are itemized and labeled so you can put it together. Yeah, relatively straightforward. The technology on it doesn't require any special skill sets at all. It's basically plugging in a router that you would at your own home if you're setting up your internet. So it's just connecting a couple of cords and that's it. For the LoRa base station assessment, or sorry, for the base stations that are connected to Starlink, that's a little bit more involved, and you could work with somebody from Okanagan Ranch and Fence to set that up for you directly. But it's not a too terribly involved process. I'd say give yourself maybe 2 to 3 hours to really walk yourself through it. But once they're set up, they're quite easy to take down as well if you need to do that. And they can be, of course, deployed and redeployed as many times as you need. I can send a link out to folks if you're interested in just seeing what is involved in the step-by-step setup after this, just so you've got an idea of what it looks like.
Great. Okay, so the next one was the longevity of technology. And Dan and Dave, what comments did you guys have on that? I'll let Dan go first.
Well, that's the big question, right? We've been using it for 2 years. It really hasn't been around to say longevity yet. So, as far as I can tell, they're pretty durable. You know what I mean? I've had broken solar panels and they're still operating and stuff like that. I do know that I talked to Gallagher and said, well, what is the plan? Let's say the warranty expires in 3 years. So 3 years down and it's not working. Like I have other things like dog collars, the shock collars, and I bought those years ago and I sent them in. They refurb them for a smaller fee than what it originally cost. I assumed that might be something, but they basically said they only think that what might need to be switched is out the battery. So the longevity is yet to be seen. So
Just as a comment from Gallagher, outside of warranty, the collars themselves are expected to last somewhere between 7 to 10 years. Case by case, of course, how it's used has a big impact on its overall lifespan.
Dave, did you want to? I'll let you answer from your perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some callers on there for a couple of months, 3 months, 6 months, and all of a sudden they just quit connecting. Gallagher's been really good about replacing them, but the same as Dan, we've only been doing it for 2 years, and all the callers are actually only not even 6 months old. They replaced them all. So they're I yeah, like I say, they've been really good on the warranty, and even we've had uh, two or three of them that smashed the solar panel. I think they were still working, but Gallagher replaced them too. So I don't know whether it was just because he wanted to try and make me happy or just what. But anyway, they've been really good that way, and I don't think what Adam says, that's what I've been told, up to 7 years is how long they're going to last. But we haven't got there yet. So
Great, thanks, guys. The next question is, how does the eShepherd neckbands work on rough terrain like range? Dave, what's your experience here? We'll go to you first, and then Dan, if you had anything to add.
My experience has only been with the battery problem. We were kind of thinking and talking to Gallagher that they were in the trees too much, like there's flies and just shaded from the sun that they go into the bush there and they may not have been charging. So that plus the area that I'm in, like I might have said, is we're using the cellular and the cell service is probably poor, although it works for us. Maybe maybe that's part of the issue. They all work and they all didn't have a problem connecting. It showed low battery. So the only way you can it's either goes to low battery, which is 30% battery, it says, or it goes to, I forget what they call it, but it turns off the machine until the battery charges up anyway. So
Dan, did you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, it works pretty good. We've got the same issue where, I mean, I've got some areas with really bad cell coverage. And so, but the callers themselves, they download the coordinates of the fence. And so even if they drop out of cell coverage, the fence still works. And so they'll drop out. And so you may not be able to see them. Maybe they don't update for a while but they're still going to be contained within the fence that you sent. And so our challenge to that is we just make sure that we have mineral and stuff set out in the areas that have coverage so that if I do need to update them, I know that they're going to come up to that every couple days or something like that. So that's what we've had. Yeah. So other than that, I mean, I do know I've looked at other brands and stuff like Halter and stuff, and they've got the solar panels up on the neck band, which I don't know how well that's going to work because I watch the cows. They like to scratch at those things too, you know, and that's right where they would be able to put a lot of pressure to them and stuff. And then I had the same experience with Gallagher, just with that broken solar panel. They just said, "Oh, send it in, we'll fix it," you know. So they've been just pretty darn good with it, you know. So.
The next question is about cell coverage and how to determine if you need a base station. So Dan, you did a little bit of an answer on that just now, but we'll go to you and then Dave and then Adam on the question of cell coverage and how to determine if you need a base station. So Adam will comment more about the base station part, but Dan and Dave will comment more on the cell coverage part.
Yeah, Gallagher will look at the area that you want to do it, and they'll be able to determine whether there's cell coverage adequate enough for that area. So we've got another pasture that we're going to run cows on that doesn't have very good cell coverage, except for on the very top of this mountain. And so we're probably going to buy a few collars with a base station. So that's all I know really about that.
Yes, Dan, I was more thinking around like your cell coverage, like how, like you had mentioned, you don't have great cell coverage. So can you maybe elaborate a little bit more about what you were saying about the mineral licks, and like what happens when they're in poor coverage areas?
Yeah. So if so in the areas that doesn't have good cell coverage, as long as it gets one bar, it'll work. It may take longer to update the collars when you want to change something or something like that, but you just want to set out a mineral feeder or have a water source, hopefully where that bar is, so that they when they come into that area, that's when the collar will update and it'll work. But I think if they drop out of cell coverage for over 24 hours, they'll turn off, and then as soon as they come back in, they'll turn back on. I haven't really had that issue. Did that answer what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's perfect. Dave, do you have anything to add about like specifically like areas of poor cell coverage that you have and how is that kind of playing out in your scenario?
Well, my son actually was able to access a program similar to what probably Gallagher does to look at the cell service from, we got two providers up here, and on our private land, uh, he looked, and virtually none of it would be covered by cell service. And so we had areas that would work with cell service. So we got the callers, and just figuring that when we put them into the area that we were going to try it anyway, and into the area that didn't have good cell service, there was absolutely no issue. They can they don't need much, I guess, to update and to operate. So that's when we decided, because Peachland was the same way. He did a search on there, and there was only a few spots that were very good coverage, and the rest was pretty well in the shadow, and yet they seemed to work. They work really well. So I I would hesitate to have somebody tell me they got no service, and yet, obviously with this, the way it was described to me, it's the data is very quick and very short to go into the caller. So other than, I guess, we've had issues with the battery, and whether that's the reason, I don't know, but they've worked in my mind in very poor cell service. And so, I mean, we had some issues with connectivity on those. I don't know if Gallagher fixed it, but with it seemed like when we went to move, one caller would not update for some reason. And it wasn't, I don't think it could have been cell service, but we couldn't even move the rest of the cattle because it wouldn't update. So we had to wait 24 hours for that caller to shut off before we could update the rest of the cattle so we could move them. So that was one issue, and I don't know if that's ever been resolved, but that was the only connectivity problem that I had, probably.
Yeah,
Thanks,
we
guys.
found the
Adam,
same issue where we just decided I'll shut the callers off, a long time before, because it's always like you got one or two that just won't do it for some reason. And I don't know if it's because they're laying under a tree, or I don't know, but same thing.
Adam, do you want to comment a bit about determining if you need a base station?
Sure. Yeah. So there's a few ways to do it. So in TELUS, Bell, Rogers, SaskTel, any cell provider in Canada does have publicly available information on their cell coverage. So if you go in and type your address in, it can show your location on a map, and it'll show you more or less where your cell coverage would be, whether it be 5G, 4G, LTE, etc. So that's a great first step, and it sounds like some folks have already done that. The other thing that you can do is your cell phone can be used to test your cell phone coverage natively. So there's a number that you can punch in onto your cell phone, call that, and it will pull up communications information from TELUS, Bell, Rogers, whatever, and it will give you a really technical readout of the strength of your cell communications. And if you worked with someone with like myself with Okanagan Ranch, we can kind of figure out how to interpret that data and whether or not you'd be a good candidate for strong cell coverage for cell, or if you might need to explore the base station assessments. That's another way of doing this assessment. The final way, of course, is when if we've determined you've got poor coverage by a desktop analysis of TELUS or Bell or what have you, and perhaps a field test with your cell phone, we can take your ranch information, effectively your legal land location, and then we can have an assessment done through some specialist partners that we work with down in Texas, where they'll overlay basically what's the scatter frequency and what does your topography look like to work out where's the best location to place your base stations, and do a triple check effectively using better levels of data to determine whether or not you'd be a good candidate for base station assessment. So that is the gold standard for, do you need to get to a base station? But there's lots of different ways that we can check prior to getting to that, and that the whole turnaround time for a base station assessment is roughly 1.5 to 2 weeks. Yeah, and Android phones, you can do it natively on your cell phone by just accessing an app, which somebody has written in chat as well. Yeah, it's way easier on the Android, but your cell phone, you can, if you have an iPhone, you can dial in a number directly.
Since we have Adam here, the next question for Adam is the best way to build virtual paddocks from a single water point in a pasture, and then I'll let the producers kind of comment about how they decide how they're building their paddocks around their water features.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can't, it's a safety feature of eShepherd to not be able to build a paddock around any, or not to be able to turn on a paddock effectively if it doesn't have a water feature inside of it. So you do need to identify in the tool itself where the water feature is, so your animals aren't cut off from a water supply for an undue period of time. If you're doing like a rotational grazing where you've got a water source of water in the very center, and you're trying to push the animals around that in a circle, a keyhole configuration is probably your best bet. So that way you're not funneling the animals together and they're jostling and pushing each other outside of the boundary, which could happen. So basically creating a right of way or a no man's land around your water point that you're okay with being trampled or trodden on a little bit too much, but then expanding that to their appropriate grazing area and then just moving that around in a circle. So a keyhole configuration, if you're using that circular rotation, is kind of the recommendation. That, or having alternating rectangular squares that can move around your property, where you are basically allowing that water trough to sit in the middle of each one of those squares as it moves around. It does depend greatly on what it is you're trying to do and the size of your land, but keyhole configuration best for circular plans, and then a kind of a rectangular distribution if you're doing it in a perfect square.
Dave, what is your kind of preferred or your thoughts on how you do this?
We have them go back to the same spot all the time for water, so they're covering like if they're in a 20-acre field, they would have to go back to the same spot, and I haven't tried to get it so that they don't, I guess, how do you put it? They're gonna go back to the same area that they've grazed, but they don't seem to impact it that bad, I don't think. And then once that pasture's finished, we set up another water trough, and same thing. They come back to that same area. So I haven't figured out the keyhole one. That's kind of interesting, but yeah, I need my boys to do that, I think.
Dan and Kimmy Sue, what are your thoughts on how you set up your systems around the water?
In our area, we have lots of springs, and so we develop springs all over the place. I mean, we've got them, and so we just basically keep our pastures around a spring, and then once that area is grazed out, I move to the next spring. So I don't really try to overuse a water source that way. You know what I mean? We just haven't found it that we could do that, but I don't want to try to manage it that closely. You know.
I see a question in the chat here. It says, I don't have cell coverage and was told I need to use a Starlink. However, I don't understand why I can't use my own internet. Um, as I understand, eShepherd can be plugged into Starlink with an Ethernet. Why can't I use mine? So we'll let Adam answer that. Actually, I think he just typed it up here, but we'll let Adam just speak to that about, and maybe this is helpful to the group to talk about the differences of what cellular coverage is versus Starlink and what their function is in this example.
Sure. So, like the base stations themselves, they're the thing that does the communication to the caller. So that's why we need to understand where's the best place to put them, because they're pushing information and receiving information from those callers. It's a communications tool that's specifically communicating to that caller. In order to do that, it needs Wi-Fi communications as well, or cellular communications, I should say, to allow them to communicate to the cloud server, which allows you to punch in your moves. So it's that connection between your keyboard and the caller. That's the function of the base station. So the cell towers provide that through cell coverage. If you don't have good cell coverage, you need to use a Starlink system. And a Starlink system isn't a like omnipresent cell coverage for your entire area. It's basically just a home-based router that is just connected by a satellite. So it's got really good communication to the router itself, but that doesn't mean you've got awesome communications or coverage throughout your entire property. With those Starlink minis, you can typically see around like 200 to 300 feet of distance between say your cell phone or like your laptop and the Starlink router itself before you start seeing communications issues or that signal strength deteriorating as well. So it's not a the best solution for all of your ailments, but if you're trying to get communications in the middle of really remote areas, it allows that communication channel to work really well. That said, you still need to have your Starlink tower close to your base station close to the Starlink router. So you want to keep them within that 200 to 300 foot radius to make sure that they're actually talking to each other. When it comes to using personal cell phone towers, it's totally known that's a need or a request of a lot of folks, but the base stations themselves are basically written to communicate with cell phone providers, not the personal ones where they basically don't. Not all communications channels and bandwidths that are used in this technology is the same. Some can be a little bit different, some can be proprietary even. So Gallagher is kind of wanting to stay out of that because it makes it really hard for them to diagnose or troubleshoot stuff, because they're going to be reliant on you as the rancher to go onto your property and figure it out, instead of pulling that information via the cloud for a cell phone provider or Starlink, where you've got a much better service for folks. So they're just not wanting to go down that path on the individual level because of the risks to quality effectively. It also introduces some security concerns as well, because those, in order to get that communication to a personal tower, that might expose some of the data that's either your own or from Gallagher themselves. So they're not wanting to go down that path just yet. It's possible that that's something that gets explored in the future, but from what I've heard with multiple conversations with them, is it's not something that they're wanting to pursue at this time.
And Adam, you're talking about personal cellular. This question I think was around using, Jasmine said, why I can't use my own internet.
You can, why you can't use your own internet, like home-based internet? I guess, Jasmine, are you on the line?
Yes.
So a couple of things there as well. So it depends on like the area that you're looking to have your base station cover. So it might be ineffective to have your base station either on top of a home or right next to your house. If you're trying to cast a signal to communicate into a far off corner of your property. The other thing there is similar to the connection to your like the Starlink. Not all routers are the same. So that would need to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. It's something that we could talk to eShepherd about to get a bit more clarity. But when it comes to using a cell tower, personal cell tower for comms, that's something that they don't want to do. Using an individual router, not too many folks have gone down that path or kicked tires at that, just because if you've got if you have a router at your home, you probably have Wi-Fi or like good cell coverage already, unless of course in your instance you're using a personal cell tower to communicate to your router. Then in that case, that introduces a whole other bunch of variables as well, which I suspect is the case for you.
Yes.
Yeah. So in that instance, that's where we come back to that being not able to leverage the provider network, and then introducing all the complexities of troubleshooting as well. So it's unfortunately, I don't think that's a route you could go down. But connection to a router directly, if you had good cell coverage, again, they wouldn't do that, because if you've got good cell coverage, you wouldn't be going with a base station in the first place.
So I don't have cell coverage, but I have my own internet. Like I have a tower and I have fiber optics.
Yeah, it goes back to as I was saying before, it's just not written to communicate that way. It's something that they could do in theory, but they don't want to go down that path for the problems that it introduces, because you're further adding layers and layers to it's a relatively complicated communications channel. So if they don't know and they can't see your personal stuff, it makes it really hard for them to really support you in any way. And if anything were to go down on that system, identifying it's difficult. And then again, the issues with security, communications, quality, etc. Which is why their preference is Starlink to base station or base station to cell tower, and not having intermediary devices kind of into that communications channel.
Okay, let's open up the floor to just folks who want to unmute themselves and ask a question to Dave, Dan, or Kimmy Sue. See, Duncan Barnett's got his hand up, so let's go to Duncan.
Thanks. You can hear me all right? I would like to thank Dan and Kimmy and Dave Casorso for their presentations. Very well done, you guys. Very interesting. My question is to Dave about trees. And I think I know what you were getting at with trees being a problem, but could you just elaborate on that in case I didn't quite understand?
I guess there's a few things with trees and meat, but we do have an issue with ponderosa pine and pregnant cows, and that's really caused some issues here, but also with the trees competing for nutrients on our grasslands, and trees competing that's on our private land, but on the crown land as well too. And the other issue, of course, was the trees shading these collars so that we couldn't they wouldn't be charging. So those are a few of my issues.
Okay. So it's like you almost need to fence out the trees in some situations, like with the ponderosa pines in spring and that.
Yeah, that could be done with the collars, but our problem is we got a blanket of them, and it's pretty hard to fence them totally out of that when you're trying to graze.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Mhm.
Anybody else with a question? You can unmute yourself or throw your hand up.
Yeah, I got a question. I don't know how to put my hand up thing here, but just wondering what the process looks like after you order the collars. Does Gallagher come out and show you how to fit them and all that sort of stuff, and show you how to run the app and make paddocks and all that? Or Or how is that process? What does that look like after you've ordered them? Thanks.
So I'll just quick weigh in here and then I'll let Dave and Dan answer from their perspective. So when you're ordering neck bands, you can order directly from Gallagher or you can order from a specialist partner. So we are a specialist partner in Canada. There's only a couple other in Canada that are specialist partners. And so for Okanagan Ranch and Fence, our level of support includes that we offer training and support. Ridge, I think you're out by Vanderhoof, right?
Yeah, that's
I
right. Yeah.
think you are. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so like I'm on the island and Lee's in Armstrong. I mean, we're not terribly far, but that's still a bit of a distance. But if you have us as if you buy directly from us, like your specialist partner, we will like give you an onboarding. We'll show you how to use the app. We can support you by phone or email or screen share and kind of walk you through whatever you need to. If you order directly from Gallagher, I think Dan and Dave, did you guys order directly from Gallagher? Guess, yeah,
Yes,
okay. So then
Yeah.
I'll let them kind of share what their experience is through getting directly from through Gallagher. Or maybe before I do that, Lee, did you have anything to add about the
Hey, Sarah, maybe I'll just jump in here. One thing that we've done with our company as well, we're actually going out on ranches and fitting neck bands as well. So we have firsthand experience going out. Sarah's also a professional grologist. And so when what she mentioned earlier about a grazing plan, our company through Sarah as well is writing grazing plans for ranchers so they can get ahead of the curve to apply for funding, that kind of thing. We're actually a full meal deal company that does the assessments. Adam's the specialist on that. We assess the area, what you need for neck bands if we need to reach out to outside experience with or more with different programs with Gallagher eShepherd, we do that. But overall, it's quite simple system. The biggest thing I've seen with fitting on neck bands on livestock, ranchers really need to have a decent set of handling facilities for their livestock. Otherwise, it's it can be quite a challenge. And but overall, it's quite seamless.
let's go to Dan.
Yeah, we just ordered it directly from, if I recall, I think they did some sort of video stuff with me to talk about some issues or how to set it up and whatnot. But it honestly was pretty straightforward. I'm not, if you can use your iPhone pretty well, the program is pretty simple, I thought. But I will agree with him, you better have some good facilities because the first caller I put on one and the way they come out of the chute, it's quite entertaining, but they settle down in about 20 seconds. But if they weren't in the actual panels, they might just go right through the barbed wire fence or something because they definitely are trying to get those off in the first 30 seconds. But then they are pretty compliant with them. But you do have to kind of get for a feel as far as how to know exactly how much slack they should have on there so they don't slip off or they're too tight. We did have, if you're putting them on bulls, get the extra long chains because we had an issue with the chains have a little ball on the end and on the very last link. And I was just with a standard chain, I had it on the last chain and the neck band actually flipped over and that ball worked a couple holes in one of my bulls pretty bad. And so with the longer chains that won't be in a fixed position like that. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but even if it flips over, it's not gonna dig into them like that. So yeah.
And I guess another thing, I had a rancher ask us, the neck bands didn't, the clips wouldn't go in, the safety clips that you put in after. Well, I guess he was playing around with the neckband and took the orange part that goes over top of the neck and put it on upside down.
Yeah.
So make sure when you do, if you are playing around with them, like you don't turn over that top of that breakaway neckband.
Yeah. If it's
Otherwise, the
not,
clip won't fit in.
if it's not going in, it's not going in for a reason. So,
Yeah, they clip in quite easily. And then, a good tool, I think, is just like an ordinary hoof pick, use on your horses too. If you gotta, say you sized it, and, oh, geez, that's a little too tight or a little bit too loose, you've already clipped the safety clip in, then you need to take that out again. You can use a screwdriver, but I think just a little safety kind of thing is just a hoof pick. It's a nice little tool to use.
yeah.
Dave, did you have any comment on
Yeah, we
getting the
were pretty
system up and
lucky to
going?
have a good chute to put him in with a neck extender, but we did make up some bungee cords to try and keep our fingers out of the way. We'd set up the chain links beforehand, kind of figuring what the animal's size was gonna be, and then we put it on, and then we'd adjust it. But same thing, you gotta be real careful with your fingers in there that you don't get pinched but Gallagher again had some videos that you could go on and watch pretty much every step. I they were quite good, especially for setting up the paddocks and stuff like that. And we did have 3 or 4 sessions with different technicians, I guess, helping us with some of that. So I thought they were pretty good. We had people in Australia and New Zealand different times that we had video calls with that were pretty knowledgeable on that stuff. So it was really good.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, everyone. Appreciate the session here. Thanks for your speakers.
Anybody else have a question? I am curious about bale grazing. Do any of you guys do bale grazing with eShepherd?
I don't.
I have done some of it. Yeah, no, it's works excellent.
Can you explain a bit how you set up your bale grazing?
Basically
used
the same
eShepherd
as
for
you
it?
would basically the same as you would in your pasture, your virtual fence pastures. It's just make make them around each, or at least that's what I did, around each bale. So you just be moving them from one paddock to the next with the bale in it. And they didn't, none of, I'm trying to think. I don't think I had any cattle that breached that barrier before they were supposed to. I actually had to go and move them, physically move them to the next one on occasion because they just maybe they weren't that hungry, or maybe they just they didn't know the barrier was down, so that was the only issue I had. But like I say, I was able to plan or my feeding 4 or 5 days in advance. So
How many bales were you putting out at a time?
uh 2, I think. It depends. I was using different there were sometimes there was 3 bales, but yeah.
I have another question, but I want the participants in here, give everybody else another chance. Does anybody have another question to ask?
If I could ask Dave about the bale grazing there. So when you're designing your paddock off of your phone or your computer, does it show your bales there that you can mark your fence around, or how does that work? Is it real time imagery, or I don't know how that works.
No, it you gotta figure out, like with my cell phone, I can go and see where the actual, I go out to the bale and then I can see on my phone where that bale is, and then I can build my paddock around it. Or in my case, I knew where it was a fairly big boundary that I had, patcher I had, I guess, for the bale. And so I could pretty much, I might have screwed up on one, and maybe they had access to two feeding areas at the same time. But for the most part, I was able to figure out where the bale was and put the fence in the right spot. So, but
Does anybody
I
else?
have to, I just wanted to mention too, with that program that that it's basically Google Earth, but it is really clear. You can see, and on our place anyway, it's updated each year, I think, and so you can see where stuff your truck was parked when they took the picture, I guess. So it's and you can count fence posts, and you can do a lot of you get a real clear picture of that pasture when you zoom in on it. So.
Jesse Williams was asking how many cows on average do you have per paddock? Go to Dave first and then Dan.
All of them. It depends. The I've only got 100 head that we had there, and so probably 40, 40 in a paddock, I guess. But I mean, it depends on the paddock. It depends on a few things that way as to how many cattle you can put in there. But you can put as many as you want, I think, or you just got to move them quicker.
So Dan?
Yeah, I mean, exactly like he said, all of them. But you can break it out however you want, like I can have all my cows in one spot and they're all calving, let's say there, but then I want to move out the ones that haven't calved yet and leave the ones. I could simply do that and just open up a new area for just those to be able to move over. I mean, honestly, the end user like us, we're the ones that are kind of inventing different ways to use this bale grazing thing. Came out, I heard about it this last year, and I thought, man, I wish I would have been told about that in December, and it would have saved me some daily work, so we're gonna try it, because it would be really cool. But there's every day I find something new that I could do with it, just like I said, with the quarantining them with pink eye, or now I'm thinking about this year with my hay production. I usually bring it all back and stack it. I do round bales so they can sit outside, and I usually bring it all and put it in one area. But I could stage it all over where I keep them in the winter if I want, and just have exclusion zones around it so that they can't get it. I mean, I can't tell you how exciting this technology is, and I can't imagine it's going to do anything but get better. So, but I love hearing about the different things people do with it, because it's like, wow, I didn't think of that.
To Dan, when you are separating like your cows, like the ones who calved out versus not, do you find they get confused by needing to be like in such close quarters and then being split apart?
Not really. I mean, obviously the calves could follow those other moms but they'll go right back to their moms. You know what I mean? So, I do that. I do that all the time. I'll have different groups of them, and I'll say, hey, I already vaccinated those. Like we're going to bring down some others, and I already have 30 head that are in that have already been vaccinated, and I can bring down the rest, but then leave the other ones where they're at. I don't recommend pushing them doing that. I've tried that before, where I leave the fence on for a few and then go out there and try to push them all, and hopefully the ones will stay. That you're kind of testing the limits of it there, so I wouldn't do that. But if you let them do it naturally, it works pretty good. So.
There's a question about the software being used. Adam, are you still on? I'm gonna duck it out.
You don't have to.
Dave, and I'm gonna go grab him.
The best.
Dave or
best
Dan, do you
thing-
want to talk about how you do it?
The best thing to use is the computer. So you can use that on a computer, a desktop, a iPad, or something like that. I've tried making paddocks and stuff on the cell phone, and it's just not as easy. So I know they say you can do that, but if I want to do anything serious, I do it on a computer. It's pretty simple, and that doesn't require any kind of Apple or anything like that.
But we use this a lot to see where they're at.
Yeah.
I think too what Dave said, because we used the Starlink Mini too when we were doing a program. We just had it up in the pasture where the cows were, hooked it up to the Starlink into the truck, and then had an iPad, and we were able to do paddock moves right there in the field with Starlink. So, and like right now, Starlink Minis are super, super cheap too. And I think it's just it's a good tool to have in the backseat of your truck kind of thing.
I found the cell phone is pretty much useless for doing any of that. We just use it to maybe locate where I am in comparison to the cattle, but doing any paddocks or anything is I have to use the laptop for sure. So I was just thinking about the bale grazing that you and I have thought about or done with the elk. It's a real challenge to leave those bales out in our area anyway. We got to collar them to save that feed, I'm sure. So
You back on, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm back here. So any other last chance for questions? We're about 3 minutes past, but we can do one more question if there is one more from the audience. All right, well, we're gonna call it a wrap there. Well, thank you so much, Dan and Kimmy Sue and Dave, for coming and sharing about your experiences. I hope everybody found this interesting and helpful. I definitely learned a few things, and always love hearing about how other people are using it. I'll be downloading this and putting it onto our YouTube channel. So I'll send everybody a link to that along with the PowerPoint presentation, so that way you can share this with folks who weren't able to make it tonight. We're trying to do these every so often, so I'll send you out an email when our next one is scheduled. But thanks everybody for coming, and have a great night.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks again, Dave and Dan and Kimmy Sue.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, everyone.